Okay, we're going to begin. Welcome to a presentation for South Arts' new initiative, Momentum. Please know that this webinar is being recorded and we will make it available on our website to those that were not able to join us this morning. I'm Nikki Estes, and I'm the Program Director for Grants and the Dance Touring Initiative at South Arts. Also on today's webinar, we have Ethan Messier, South Arts Assistant Program Director, and Ivan Segota, who will serve as an advisor and mentor for Momentum. Ethan, do you want to say hello and tell everyone a little bit about your work at South Arts?
Sure. My name is Ethan. As Nikki said, I work about halfway on another program of ours, the Performing Arts Exchange, and I've also worked with Nikki for the last 3 or 4 years on the Dance Touring Initiative and some of our other grants programs.
Thank you. Will you unmute Ivan so that he can tell us and the participants about his work in the field of dance? Ivan?
Hello, welcome all. I've been around in the field for over 40 years, most of it with an organization here in New York called Pentacle. And I've fulfilled many administrative functions on behalf of artists, mostly artist-driven companies. I've been involved with the Dance Touring Initiative for all 10 or so years of its existence, and it's been a fascinating journey that we'll refer to a little bit later, and I'm very glad to be working with all of you. Good luck on your proposals.
Thank you, Ivan. This morning, I will provide a general overview of South Arts and Momentum. Then we will spend the last 15 minutes answering your questions. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be sure to get to it at the end. To begin, let's start with a very brief overview of South Arts and our new directions. We have a new mission statement that is advancing Southern vitality through the arts. As a regional arts organization, South Arts provides programs and services in these 9 states, but we also have a national initiative and a regional conference that reach broader beyond these states. Our new strategic plan includes efforts to support the artistic and professional growth and success of artists in the South, to connect artists and arts professionals in the South to resources that will increase opportunities for success within and outside of our region, to advance impactful arts-based programs that recognize and address the trends and the evolving needs of a wide range of communities in the South, and to communicate and celebrate the excellence, innovation, value, and power of the arts in the South. We recognize that Southern artists are under-resourced, and we are working to both attract national resources and attention on the best in the region. And we also are working to help Southern artists live and thrive in the South and to stay in the South. Over the past year, we have revised our previous grant guidelines with a new emphasis on Southern arts and artists, and are developing new funding opportunities and support structures for artists. One way that we fulfill our mission and goals is by supporting the presenting and touring field, particularly through our annual Performing Arts Exchange Conference and the Grants Program. Much of our funding supports the presenting and touring field, and as I mentioned, our new strategic plan furthers our commitment to advancing the work and the careers of artists in our region. We now have more opportunities to support individual artists through fellowships and new grants. For special initiatives, we plan to work with artists in a more significant way, For example, Momentum for dance companies, In These Mountains for traditional artists, and Jazz Road for musicians. Our contact with grantees ranges from a quick and hands-off approach, such as those with our touring grants, to a very involved and long-term partnership like the Dance Touring Initiative and Momentum, which are multi-year programs. Let's move on and talk more specifically about the Dance Touring Initiative and Momentum. We launched the Dance Touring Initiative in 2009 in an effort to work with organizations on dance presenting. This program has grown from a network of 10 presenters to almost 30. The network includes a diverse group of presenters from organizations in rural communities to university and college presenters. Our goals were to see more modern dance in the South, to cultivate dance audiences, and to nurture a strong network of Southern dance presenters. The primary components of this program, in addition to grants and funding, are professional development, convenings, planning visits, and community engagement residencies. The Dance Touring Initiative presenters created and embraced 3 critical values: creating a learning community with dance presenters, building community with dance artists, and developing a new approach to dance touring. Ivan, do you want to speak a little bit more about these values?
Glad to. I think the key phrase in all of this is the learning community, because it gets people who come to the table interested in the art form, and that, as was true of all the people who participated in Dance Touring Initiative over the years, and gives them resources, shores them up so that they're better able to do what they want to do. And the key thing is that they learn to use each other as resources and the artists as resources. At the very beginning, they kept running to the consultants. How do you do this? What does that mean? We became almost superfluous over time, which is exactly the way it was supposed to work. And in particular, these presenters learned to focus on the work and use the artist as a resource in understanding the work, in marketing the work, in contextualizing the work for the local community, and in designing community engagement activities that would reinforce the connection between the community, the artist, and the work. You'll see that one of the prime focuses of Momentum is to enable artist-driven companies. I want to say a little bit about that. There's a phrase that has a lot of currency, the single choreographer company. I find it increasingly unuseful. I once tried to explain to my late mother what I did for a living working in the arts, and I said, I work with these single choreographer companies, and she immediately said, what's the matter, aren't they married? It's a jargon phrase that doesn't mean a lot to other people. And when we thought about it, it's also got a bit of a Eurocentric connotation to it. The artist as a kind of shaman, strange, dangerous individual who changes reality in our focus. We wanted to make sure to not limit it to this Eurocentric vision, but to include all kinds of cultures. And dance is made and transmitted in many ways in different cultures and different traditions. So we didn't want to inadvertently exclude that by using the phrase single choreographer companies, though I suspect that most of you are. But it's not only that. We wanted to make sure that the Chuck Davis of tomorrow wasn't self-excluding because they misunderstood what our focus was. I have a story about the Dance Touring Initiative that encapsulates it for me. At the very beginning, the cohorts were a mixture of some dance companies who came to the table understanding artists, wanting to work with them because they also use them for teaching on campus. And the kind of town-based presenters whose natural bent was to look at repertory companies because it was perceived to be an easier match with audiences who didn't understand dance well to begin with. Along about cohort 2, which would have been about the 3rd or 4th year into the program, one of these community-based presenters said, you know, next time around, I want to deal with an artist. It sounds exciting. And that's when I told myself, okay, we're starting to achieve our goals. And that has led us now to a willingness and an eagerness to focus on you, the artists from the South, who are directing and conceiving and promoting artist-driven companies. So that's a bit of a history of the Dance Tour Initiative and how that got to this intersection with the new Momentum Project.
Great, thank you, Ivan. So as Ivan mentioned, through the Dance Touring Initiative, conversations with presenters and grantees, and our new strategic planning work, we recognized that Southern dance companies were not being selected for funding and touring opportunities. Some of the reasons include perhaps that presenters are not familiar with the company or their work, or there may be uncertainty about the touring capacity and experience of these companies. So using the success of our Dance Touring Initiative model, we created Momentum to begin to address this gap. The goals of this initiative are to increase touring capacity, to increase access to resources and opportunities, and to increase awareness and recognition both within our region and beyond. The primary components of Momentum are professional development. This includes year-round webinars and calls, a convening at our annual conference each year, access to a mentor and the Dance Touring Initiative presenters, and access to touring resources. Another component includes working collectively with presenters. This includes working with the presenter partner for the tour prep residency and collaborating with presenters during planning visits and touring engagements. The tour prep residency is an important part of this new initiative. We recognize that many times companies don't have access to performance space, and so we are going to fund each company to go to a presenter's community, spend several days in that community to fine-tune and tweak their work before it begins to tour. While you're at the presenter's community, you'll have access, should you want it, from the presenter. You'll also have access to this technical staff. And during this time, South Arts will document the work either through video and or photography so that you can use this in future promotions as you begin to prepare your touring materials. I want to talk a little bit more about the planning visits and how these came about. The planning visits started with our Dance Touring Initiative model. We wanted to support and encourage the collaboration and exchange between artists as well as the presenter. And so we required each presenter to bring the artist of the company that they were going to engage in the following year into their community. This trip and visit allowed the artist to meet the presenter and their staff, to see the performance space, to look at alternatives to performance spaces, to perhaps meet with the community or possible partners, learn a little bit more about the community, and then based on all of that exchange, the presenter and the artist sit down and design a residency that is based on the artist's capacity as well as the presenter's needs with all of this new knowledge. And so what we've heard from all of the presenters in the Dance Touring Initiative is that this planning visit was a game changer and a critical element in the success of the presentation of the company later that year. Another important element of Momentum is the opportunity to showcase and exhibit at our Performing Arts Exchange Conference. Showcasing is your opportunity to show your work to presenters. Exhibiting in the marketplace is your opportunity to talk business with presenters. Ethan, do you want to take some time explaining a little bit more about the Performing Arts Exchange?
Certainly. So, as Nikki said, the Performing Arts Exchange is our annual booking conference. It serves the Eastern United States, and we are one of 3 regional conferences. So we have counterparts on the West Coast and in Middle America. Usually the Performing Arts Exchange, or PAE as we usually call it, has between 600 and 700 attendees, and these attendees are a mixture of agents, managers, performing artists, members of service organizations, and performing arts programmers or presenters. Usually these presenters are from university and nonprofit performing arts centers, as well as local arts councils. There are 4 main conference components to PAE. The first is networking, the chance to meet your colleagues. These are mainly hospitality events, but also consist of special interest meetings and consortium meetings, such as state presenter networks. The second conference component is professional development. We have 15 75-minute sessions that range from nuts and bolts of how to do the business to more deeper conversations about issues and ideas in the industry. We also have 2 to 3 half-day pre-conference sessions at the beginning of the conference. So these are usually a primer to presenting for new presenters, a primer to touring for touring artists. Sometimes these focus on the nuts and bolts of touring, and other times it focuses more on community engagement. And then we usually have a wild card one. So in the past, we've had a dance forum, and this year we had a women's forum. The third conference component are showcases. Showcases are short snippets of work, usually 15 to 20 minutes, to show performing arts presenters what a performance would look like in their space on stage. So there's a couple different kinds of showcases. The first are juried showcases. These are showcases that are produced by South Arts. We've gone through an application process and chosen 16 to 18 artists, and they showcase over the course of 2 nights. There's nothing cross-programmed with juried showcases because we want everybody to be able to focus on these artists that have been vetted. Sometimes we have an additional showcase. This year we had a showcase of traditional and folk artists from the South. Then there are also independent showcases. These showcases are after hours, and they're produced by agents, managers, and artists who attend the conference. They usually sublease conference space from us, or they find a space out in the community. And these are late at night, and they happen at the same time. They happen concurrently. The last conference component is the exhibit hall. So this is really where business gets done, as we like to say. We have up to 200 booths, and these booths are held by agencies and individual artists, mostly looking to tour their roster or upcoming performances for the following season. And this is really your time to meet with presenters, time to figure out dates, time to talk about what works for their community and doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of a quick summary of the Performing Arts Exchange. If you have more questions about it, you can feel free to check out the website. It's pae.southarts.org.
Thanks, Ethan. Ivan, will you just spend maybe a minute talking about the importance of showcasing and exhibiting at PAE?
Yes, indeed. It's very difficult for presenters to do much traveling at all. So seeing you live or getting a good sampling of what you do is very, very important. It's basically the first thing presenters have to go on, and often the only thing. So the art of showcasing is something that needs a lot of attention and care taken with. In the course of Momentum, we'll spend a fair amount of time talking about showcasing and a subcategory which is using video to represent your work. The main problem is that the artist, her or himself, is not the best person to do final cut on such things because the showcase or the video is a mnemonic device. You know what the piece is and where in the piece the excerpt comes from. Somebody who's looking at it for the first time doesn't have that information, and it's very easy to not get the context, to misunderstand what the emphasis of your work. And there's a story I love to tell. One year, the LA company had this fabulous series of subway ads with this guy leaping like no one's done since Nijinsky. Turned out that Lois Greenfield was on a ladder shooting straight down because the guy was on a white piece of paper. He wasn't jumping at all. All of a sudden, artists who barely got off the floor were finding the one jump in a lifetime of work and featuring it in their ads because it was like automatic behavior. You've got to find the showcase and video construct that best fits who you really are, and that takes a lot of thought and often an outside eye. We'll spend time on that.
Thank you. So I wanted Ivan and Ethan to, talk a little bit more about PAE because it is such an important part of the program and about your work as a touring artist. And much of the time that we will spend as a group will actually happen at the Performing Arts Exchange, particularly our peer-to-peer meetings. So that's going to be our focal gathering point, and we'll have lots more to say about that.
I'd love to add something. Most people consider PAE as a shopping experience. We've learned from the years of the Dance Touring Initiative that it's more productive to refer to it as a learning experience. There's a word we use a lot up here in New York, where I'm from, schmoozing. It's an occasion to schmooze with people, which is different from, I got something, you want to buy it, what's the most you'll pay? Yes, no, end of conversation. That's not productive. You've got to have a longer time frame, and Performing Arts Exchange is a marvelous place to start those conversations that go on over time. They build your understanding of what the presenter and his community is, or her community, and they to understand what you're about.
Great point.
We often use the phrase change the conversation, and in ways specifically that involve the artist and artist input. At the beginning, we almost heard artists say, what, talk to presenters? Well, I'd pay someone to do that for me. That is the exact opposite of the focus of Dance Touring Initiative and Momentum. The artist has to be at the table.
Thank you. So the timeline for Momentum covers a 3-year period. Momentum's series of calls and webinars will begin in April or May of 2019, followed by a convening at the Performing Arts Exchange that September. After the conference, we will begin to think about partners for the tour prep residency. In 2020, companies will travel to the presenters' community to prep the work for touring. Then at the Performing Arts Exchange, we will have another peer meeting, and you will showcase your work and have space in the marketplace, also known as the exhibit hall. In 2021, companies will participate in planning visits with 3 to 5 presenters. Companies will meet together, showcase and exhibit at PAE again. Touring engagements and community residencies will begin in 2021, and touring will wrap up by April of 2022. So if you're planning to apply, please understand the eligibility and expectations for this program. Only professional modern dance and contemporary ballet companies located in South Arts 9-state region are eligible to apply. Applicants do not have to have tax-exempt status, but an applicant has to be a legally registered entity that can provide a federal ID number, or the company must have a fiscal agent. The company's artistic or executive director must be the primary participant. We would prefer and highly recommend that the artistic director participate, and I'll let Ivan talk a little bit more and explain why this is so important.
Thank you. As I said before, the artist needs to be at the table as work is conceived and as these engagements are conceived, because they're the unique source of the deepest knowledge about the company and the art. There's also a practical reason. First of all, we expect that many of the applicants will not be million-dollar organizations. If there is administrative help, it's likely to be part-time. And unless you're married to it, it tends to go away and get a better job somewhere. DTI, we had a few cast changes over the years, and it was distressing to see someone who had worked themselves into the heart of our community and then for various reasons leave it, and the connections and the knowledge and the attitude left with the person. These things are not really transferable to others in the organization. So we'd hate for companies to participate over a number of years in Momentum, and then the artistic director, for whatever reason, or the executive director, whatever the title is, leaves for some reason. And in many ways, you're back to square one. Knowledge and connections are gone with the wind. That's why we think it is so important for the artistic director to be intimately involved in aspects of the program. And I want to add something else. We expect the artistic directorship to allow itself to be vulnerable. The program assumes that if you are already expert at marketing, connecting with presenters, pricing yourselves, you'd already be touring widely. It's not a shame to not be an expert on all these things because you've been in the studio concentrating on the work. We can help you and you can help one another, but you've got to admit that you need some help. Can I tell a quick story about that? Years ago at Pentacle, when I was there in New York, we had a program called the Help Desk that was sort of analogous to what Momentum means to be. It was pretty well regarded artist-driven companies and with the artists participating. And one fella had scheduled a photo shoot. And anyone knows that it's hard to do that because you have to have the photographer and the costumes and the new piece almost ready for it to mean something. Lost the photographer. And he was abashed. And first thought was, well, I should ask my colleagues in this help desk. And then he said to himself, I can't show myself to be that lame. I mean, I can't find a photographer. That's sad. Then he said, get over it. These people are there to help me. And he did, and it instantly got a couple of good suggestions, and they worked out. The point is, that moment where he said, I can't let myself appear to be vulnerable because they'll think I'm less than professional, less than talented, less than whatever. You got to get over it, and you will end up being marvelous resources for one another when the program runs its course in 3 or 4 years.
You're absolutely right. Thanks, Ivan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about expectations for the program, but just one final note about eligibility. Also, the company's annual operating budget cannot exceed $750,000. So let's talk a little bit about expectations, and Ivan began to talk about this. Our expectations include full participation for the 3-year period. You will need to have the capacity to learn and contribute to discussions during scheduled webinars, meetings, and conference calls for the 3-year period, and hopefully beyond that. For this program to be successful, you will need to work very openly with a willingness to be candid about your artistic and financial realities and decisions. You will need to be open and candid with each other, your mentors, and the presenters. And finally, having the flexibility to work in collaboration with presenting partners is essential. Your entire application will be submitted online. Your work sample is a critical part of your application. You will be asked to provide a video work sample of one complete work or piece and up to 2 excerpts, 5 to 7 minutes each, that you feel best represent the artistic quality of the company. You will also be asked to provide financial information and answer questions about your company history, the current work that you have, your touring history, past grants, fellowships, or commissions, and goals for participation. Your application is due on Friday, January 18th, and you should expect to receive an email in April or May letting you know if you were selected. For the selection process, we will convene a panel of professionals from the dance field, and they will review and discuss the company's artistic quality. This may include having work at various stages of completion, with some that could be considered ready for touring, and whether your company has professional dancers performing the work of professional choreographers with the focus predominantly on new or contemporary work. They will also consider your interest in touring and your history of touring within the past 5 years, whether there is room within the organization to build the operational capacity to tour, your ability to participate in at least 3 performances on a tour, traveling a minimum of 100 miles away from home, and the anticipated impact this opportunity may have on your career as a touring dance company. The panel will also discuss whether you have at least 1 dedicated staff person available to participate in the entire scope of this program's components. If you are selected, we want you to be aware that you'll have to sign a contract for participation. You'll have to acknowledge South Arts and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation for the work supported by these grant funds. There may be a site visit by the program staff, your mentor, or presenting partners in order to see the work. You will also need to complete a fairly simple report and contribute to the program's evaluation process. You can access the guidelines and application by visiting our website. Please carefully review the guidelines and take the time to prepare a strong application and provide strong work samples. You are now able to start an application and save your work for up to 30 days. You can also find additional information about the Dance Touring Initiative and other programming such as the Performing Arts Exchange on our website. And I'm always available by phone or email to answer your questions throughout the process. I also want to encourage interested applicants to call me to discuss their eligibility just to ensure that the program is a good fit. Let's take a look at the questions that you have at this moment. If you have a question, again, please type in the Q&A box at the bottom, and Ethan will read each question so that everyone has the benefit of this portion of the presentation.
Hi, Nikki. The first questions are regarding eligibility. The first one says, I am the co-artistic director of a dance company. Can both of us participate in conversations throughout the process?
Let's say absolutely. One thing that we would definitely try to do, particularly on webinars and virtual meetings, is to involve additional individuals at your company that may be a good fit for the topic at hand. I will say for the in-person meetings, such as the one at the Performing Arts Exchange, we have a budget for one person to attend at the first meeting and the company to come for exhibiting and showcasing for the second and third meeting. But yes, we would like to see more connection within the company, particularly on our virtual meetings.
Okay, the second question is, are dance companies that create works for non-traditional venues, for example, outdoor public spaces, art galleries, museums, eligible to apply?
Yes, and Ivan, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? I know we talked about it.
Yes, it's somewhat implicit in the materials you've been able to read already, but a prime focus of the program works for stages. We've worked for almost 10 years with a cohort of presenters, and their main job is to program mostly theaters. We realize that fascinating artists are making fascinating work for non-theatrical venues, site work, the whole gamut. But the best use of the experience that South Arts has accumulated and these presenters have is work for stage, not necessarily proscenium, but what for them is the main stage, spaces to which they charge admission. That doesn't mean that they don't also do other interesting kinds of work, such as on this list, but it's not the prime focus. In other words, you will be supported to tour a program to theaters. Is that fair enough?
Yes, thank you.
So somebody has written, I have one work that is 45 minutes. Is that allowable in addition to 2 excerpts?
Well, one, I'm going to ask you, Ethan, does our platform allow for this size of a video?
If you link in a Vimeo link or a YouTube link, yes. A video upload of that size probably will not work well.
Okay, so thank you. We will allow it. We haven't set up the instructions for panels, but we are asking for a completed work. And so whether the panelists will take the time to look at the entire 45 minutes, we will leave it up to them. We will certainly have a minimum that is required for viewing. So I would say it's better to provide that longer piece if they're intrigued and want to see it all, would be helpful.
I'd like to add something. Please be aware of these very fancily edited videos. I've been on panels where the panel said, let's give a grant to the videographer, but I have no idea how the choreographer's strings work together. It's so cut up. We really need to see how you make work and how you string parts together.
Exactly. And I would,
in marketing sense, some of these excerpt tapes are very pizzazzy, but that's not necessarily the best choice for this panel.
absolutely. And I will say we would probably discourage the use of promotional videos that kind of puts snippets of your work together. We really want to give the panel an opportunity to see the work, a good chunk of a particular piece, so they get a sense of the movement and your language and the choreography. Next question.
Nikki, is there a list of application questions somewhere other than the active application?
No, there isn't, but you can take a look at the application questions by going to the application without starting an application. And I mentioned earlier that you could start an application, save it, and go back and work on it. It would only save the application for up to 30 days. But regardless, I would recommend that applicants copy the applications and begin drafting your responses in a Word template so that you can save that and edit it as needed, and also use spell check and all of the other features and tools that are within that particular program. And you can certainly look at the questions without beginning the application. There is a page 2 so that you can save your work, but there are no questions on the page 2. It's just a signature page, so you shouldn't worry about what's on page 2.
Is there a limit to the number of dancers for a company?
There is not a limit to the number of dancers, but I would say when you take a look at the program design and you see the type of support that we're offering, you may have to consider that within the context of your budget and what it takes for you to tour. For example, we are offering subsidies to presenters to present these companies, and we're offering subsidies up to $7,500. And so if your artist fee is, let's say $100,000, then it may be beyond the presenter's interest. The presenter may not have the capacity or the budget or financial means to present a company with an artistic fee that is $100,000 when they're getting support for $7,500. So I would just say take a look at the support that's provided as far as the dollar amounts. Also, we will provide up to a maximum for the travel to get the company to the presenter community for the tour prep residency, a maximum travel budget to get to PAE. And so you might need to look at that in detail to see whether this will meet your needs and your budget.
Nikki, would anybody from the organization be available for application review and feedback prior to final submissions?
Unfortunately, I'm not reviewing applications for this program, but I will be available anytime to answer questions. If you have specific questions about how you might want to approach a particular question, I'm happy to provide that guidance.
Nikki, the next question is, we're a contemporary ballet company with dancers having a strong classical base. Is this an appropriate program for us?
I would say as long as the work is contemporary, I think we all expect for contemporary ballet companies to have a basic a base point for their work, but the work that this program will focus on is truly contemporary ballet or modern dance. So as long as that's the work that you are bringing forward to this project, we wouldn't see that as a challenge or issue. Ivan, did you want to add anything to that?
I would like to add to that. There's no prohibition against any kind of particular dance idiom. We clearly have a focus towards artist-driven companies, which is seen as unfairly perhaps as the opposite of pure rep companies. I can easily conceive of a ballet company that has a certain kind of focus, a certain kind of ballet, a certain use of space or something. So long as there's a coherent vision and someone associated with the company is responsible for it and can articulate it in the application. It's very dangerous to assume just because you say that you're the Joe Blow dance company that of course it's artist driven. Maybe not. How and why? Same thing with a company that could be conceived of as a rep company, but may have an underlying focus or theme at work.
And I will also add that this program is focused on American modern dance. and that could certainly look lots of different variations of what that is. Next question.
Could you talk a little bit more about the community engagement and education component of the residency outside the performances?
Sure. So like our Dance Touring Initiative program with presenters, we believe that engagement in the community is critical, particularly as our goals are to nurture and cultivate dance audiences. And so we expect in this particular program, similarly to the Dance Touring Initiative, that the companies that are selected would also provide activities for community engagement. So that could take so many different forms, again, based on your work, based on who the audience is for your work, based on the community needs, but it could be anything from, working with children or youth to adults or seniors. It could be anything from a workshop, a lecture demonstration to college students, so many different shapes and sizes that this comes into. And again, we are wanting to learn from you what your current offerings are, if you have any, and if not, whether or not you're open to exploring this, because it will be a requirement that each company not only provide a performance, but also provide educational and community residency activities.
Let me add something. This question is intimately tied into the whole concept of the advanced visit. The advanced visit is where artists and members of the community meet one another and decide which of the choices are perhaps the most meaningful for the community and for the artist. It's also where elements of the community other than the presenter itself get to have buy-in, so that before you even get to town, you've had meetings with the person who runs the youth center or the prison rehabilitation program or whatever it is. And the Dance Touring program has a lot of interesting stories of things that happen unexpectedly in these advanced visits, connections that were made that help build a much more successful and impactful actual performance residency.
Great. Thanks, Ivan. The next question is, toward the beginning of the presentation, under program components, we mentioned touring resources. Can we provide some examples of what those resources are?
Sure. So what we plan to do is we will coordinate and organize professional development around making sure that the participants are aware and knowledgeable about funding opportunities, other programs that support dance touring. We will also provide a mentor, an individual mentor for the program. Ivan will serve as kind of the program mentor and guide us all through this process based on his experience in the dance field and with the Dance Touring Initiative. But you'll each have an individual mentor that you'll be able to talk with and perhaps use as a sounding board for ideas and feedback. We will provide documentation and other tools and resources for you to begin preparing your touring materials. We have, let's see, what else do we have planned, Ivan or Ethan?
Well, I think the greatest resource is a community of at least 30 presenters who are committed to dance, committed to looking at you and want to talk to you. That's the most precious touring resources. There's something there to work with. And other ways of looking at it, some very basic things like, are you quoting fees in the best way that both meet your needs and represent reasonableness or flexibility to the presenters? How do you negotiate a block if you've got two or more presenters looking to have you do a coordinated tour? These are skills that no one's born with.
Right, and I think Ivan was referencing the fact that we plan to connect you to the DTI presenters. We've been talking with these presenters for several months about the program, and they're all very excited about it. And want to be involved in some way. And so they may serve as tour prep partners. They may end up presenting you. You'll get to meet them at Performing Arts Exchange. They likely will lead some of the webinars and calls. And also we plan to connect you with presenters outside of the Dance Touring Initiative Network. And so this will happen obviously at PAE, but we also have other grant programs. We have a touring grant program and a planning grant program and professional development program that presenters can use to see your work being performed elsewhere, and hopefully that will lead to future engagement. So again, we're going to try to make as many connections as we can with our current resources that we offer at South Arts and the network of presenters that we work with on various programs.
Yes, one last facet of the answer that's a little bit cute but true. You, the artistic directors of these Southern companies, are a touring resource, and it's our goal to help make you most effectively available to this community of presenters and the people they work with. I said it was a little cute.
Thanks, Ivan. Ethan, are there more questions?
Yeah, we have a number. So if the company has a few permanent dancers but routinely has year-plus long apprenticeships, what would this affect the chances of being awarded?
Ivan, do you have a...
I think the prime thing is the quality of the work.
Exactly.
And there's so many ways of getting there these days when there's no one way to make a company and keep it together.
Right, and I think South Arts tries to be as open and understanding of the current world that we work in, and we know that a lot of times having full-time dancers in your home residence, it may not be possible. So I think we're open and understanding to that. And again, as Ivan said, it really is going to be based on the artistic quality of the company and the dancers.
One other consideration, typically you're going through this booking process a year or sometimes longer from the potential date. So if you do have apprentices, you sort of need to feel confident that they'll be there to rehearse with you and to tour with the piece a year or more later. So it's not the fact that they're apprentices, is are they with you?
Right. Okay. I'm going to keep us rolling a little bit because we have a few more questions. I'm in the middle of a creative process for a new evening-length work that will be presented in February 19. Can I use rehearsal footage from work in progress as one of our work sample excerpts? Or do these work sample excerpts need to be from performances?
I think the work samples need to show your work effectively. I don't think it matters too much exactly where it comes from. And you will have a chance in annotating your work sample of why you sent it and how it's relevant.
That's exactly how I was going to respond.
Mm-hmm. Does the company need to have previous touring experience to be competitive?
I don't think so. So we're not requiring as an eligibility criteria. So I would say that if there isn't touring experience, I think it's going to be really important for the applicant to talk about why they want to venture into touring, and perhaps if they've tried and if there have been challenges or barriers, and perhaps how this program can help you meet your needs and your goals.
You will be showing experience performing at home, wherever home is. And that's a baseline.
Who and where are the 30 presenters?
Well, you can take a look at the presenters that are involved in the Dance Touring Initiative on our website. If you go to southarts.org and take a look at Touring Arts, you'll see Dance Touring Initiative, and there should be on the right two toolbar, Meet the Presenters. So there's a list of them there. But they're all over our region. And as I said, it's a very diverse group of presenters. Not just their, who they are, rural presenter or university presenter, but the space that they have, their budgets, their curatorial approach.
Okay. Our modern dance performed in non-traditional venues is fused directly into community development, planning, civic actions, or driving social change. Would this still be a fit?
Reread the question.
Our modern dance performed in non-traditional venues is fused directly into community development, planning, civic actions, or driving social change. Would this still be a fit?
This is a really tricky question and an important one. Are you exclusively performing in non-traditional venues, or is it simply a potential and valuable facet of what you do at home and away? So there's no black and white answer, but I think we've given a sense of how this fits into the presenting programs of many, if not most, of the 30 or so presenters that have been part of DTI. So there's a bit of a judgment call on your part.
Okay, that's the last question I have. Are there any more questions?
When in doubt, try. I hate to say anything that made anyone think that, no, this kind of important stuff is simply not welcome at the table. But make your case.
Make your case, and also feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to chat with you in more detail about your work. And if there are no more questions, I would say, thank you all for participating. We'll be sure to post this webinar on our website in the next day or so. So if you want to go back and reference it, you can. Please share it with others in the community that you feel might be a good fit. And again, please don't hesitate to give me a call or email me with your questions. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.